Jada Pinkett Smith is proposing that African Americans boycott the Oscars because there were no African American nominees. However, shouldn't Jada Pinkett Smith be more focused on her son Jaden, who is now the face for Louis Vuitton's women's line? And shouldn't she be organizing a boycott of Louis Vuitton? You would think boycotting Louis Vuitton would be the priority for Miss Pinkett and not the Oscars. However, there's a nice little ulterior motive behind Miss Smith's proposal of this boycott of the Oscars. And that's because her husband Will starred in this film called Concussion. And this film, which was about NFL players who suffered concussions or the doctor who diagnosed it, wasn't even considered for a single nomination. So we can look at Miss Pinkett's protest and see the disingenuousness behind it. She has no real interest in seeing diversity in Hollywood. Because if Miss Pinkett was really concerned about diversity in Hollywood, she would have been complaining about this last year and the years that went on. And you would think somebody who has been a part of the entertainment business for just about as long as I have would have an understanding of how Hollywood nominates its people of color. When it comes down to black people, there are only certain roles that African Americans are going to get nominated for. If we look at the history of your Academy Awards, which are run by your white liberals, they only pick certain roles for nomination. And those roles are usually your slave roles, like those in 12 Years a Slave, your brutes, like in Denzel Washington portrayed in Training Day, your minstrels, um, your biopics, where people play, legendary black people from the past, which are usually entertainers like Jamie Foxx and Ray, your Jezebels, like Halle Berry portrayed in Monsters Ball, your slaves, again, or other assorted roles that make white liberals feel comfortable about black people. Now, roles that feature black people playing intelligent, multidimensional, complex characters, that's got no chance of ever being considered by your Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences. And everybody with common sense knows that. You just look at the pattern and look at who's been nominated and look at what's won. So I don't understand why people continue to complain, about the lack of diversity with the Oscars. You're never going to win approval from the Oscars for those type of roles. Never going to win consideration for those type of roles. So why keep protesting an organization that does not want to consider or acknowledge you? And plus, again, for the second year in a row, there weren't that many great African American films out there. How many people heard of Concussion? And the only other films that were out here were your Straight Out of Compton, another minstrel show, and the other one I think was The Perfect Guy, which was another show featuring another black brute. So there weren't that many films out there, and there weren't that many great films out there. So how can you complain about, there being diversity? Again, our problem as African Americans is we keep seeking the approval of white liberals and the validation of white liberals, hoping that if they accept us in these with these awards, we will gain further acceptance. That's the stupidest thing that we could ever do. I mean, look at what's going on with Bill Cosby. I mean, he was a man who pretty much had everything that everybody aspires for. And the same liberals who built up Bill Cosby are now working towards tearing this man down. So I listen to Jada Pinkett and I see how completely clueless she is, regarding the entertainment business and the subtle politics transpiring around her. She's talking about boycotting the Academy Awards in a disingenuous fashion because she only wants to just boycott it because they refuse to acknowledge her husband's performance in a movie and they refuse to pay it any attention. And the only reason why they're not going to pay that film any attention again is because it does not fit the narrative of the liberals in Hollywood when it comes down to awards. They only reward Negroes for portraying certain roles and playing certain characters. They do not reward Negroes for playing roles that show that they are humanized and equal to white people. And you can boycott till the cows come home, and that's not going to change. And the whole thing with Hollywood is that you know they've never they're never going to acknowledge humanized images of African Americans. That's just the way Hollywood is. They're just not going to do it. So it's pretty much, if you want to reward our best actors and our best performers, we have to do that ourselves. More importantly, we have to start creating our own films ourselves. But nobody out here has the backbone or the testicles to do the work, like guys like I do, or guys in the past like Oscar and Show have done, and make the effort to produce this type of content. And the sad part is, instead of talking about protesting, Miss Pinkett really needs to, go find her husband, and they need to go check that son of theirs, because he's making efforts to degrade the image of the African American male, and that should be their top priority. Then, after they deal with him, what they need to do is, take some of the hundreds of millions of dollars that they have, and instead of complaining to Hollywood, go out and make their own films. Because if they made their own films, then they could go out here, and have something to compete with, and they wouldn't have to complain about diversity in Hollywood. They would be able to do this, on their own. I mean, you have enough money to make your own films, make your own content, produce your own content, and to go out here and really make, the type of films you want to make, write the roles you kind of want to write, and, go out and do what you want to do. I mean, Will Smith has hundreds of millions of dollars. Why is he sitting here and him and his wife talking about we need more diversity in Hollywood? You have the wealth and the resources to create the diversity in Hollywood. I mean, you don't even need to go to Hollywood. You can go make your own films, and make it your own way. I mean, we have all this technology out here. We have streaming. We have social media. There's ways of getting, the word out about a film. And I remember watching, what happened with I Will Follow a couple of years ago, the film with Sally Richardson Whitfield. They didn't go to the studios. They didn't go to they went with a whole different distribution system, and they got their film out. And the same thing with a lot of people now. They're going with streaming. You don't have to go through the Hollywood system anymore. So there's no more need to go to Hollywood anymore. The resources are there. And you would think she would be, calling out to advocate for this, but that would be something she would do if she were honest. The truth of the matter is, Miss Pinkett is disingenuous, Mr. Smith is disingenuous, and their priorities are pretty much skewed. I mean, if they were serious about, improving the image of African Americans in Hollywood and, diversifying things, they would be, one, dealing with that son of theirs and how he degrades the image of the African American man, and two, they would be working towards making their own films. I mean, this would be the two priorities they would have. They would not be out here, talking about we need to boycott the Oscars. No, the priorities would be we need to make our own films, and then, focus on getting us right and not trying to win the favor and approval of white folks in Hollywood. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe.